now welcome the acclaimed dance company founder, Robert Moses. His company, Robert Moses Kin, is one of the leading dance companies in America, and he was recently appointed artist-in-resident and director of the Committee on Black Performing Arts at Stanford University. Welcome.
Thank you.
Busy week this week.
Very busy
as we tape this program.
Yes, I'm sorry, didn't mean to step on you.
Yeah, but do you get nervous? I mean, when you have a performance?
Not so much, because you don't really have time to get nervous. You have so much to do. I've got, in this particular program, I've got 11 dancers, a quartet, a musical quartet, collaborators, 100 costumes to organize. You don't have time to get nervous. You're just too busy.
How about concerned?
Well, yeah, sure. You're concerned that you want everything to go well.
Right.
So there's concern that every little thing goes right, because I think a lot of people think that artists are laissez-faire, easy-going people, but some of us are a little type A.
The dancers are very disciplined. Yes. I mean, here you have a couple of premieres this week, don't you?
We actually have 3. We have 2 premieres by myself and 1 by Amy Seward, a really talented young choreographer.
So there's a lot of you going on this week. It's not just the performance, but there's also you as the author of these pieces.
Yes. And,
it's hard to understand this, but when we first heard about you, we know you have some very strong political views. Mm. We know that. And yet, and I've looked at the wonderful video that's posted. There's a link at our website. You must watch this video. Just a collage of some of your work, especially the first one. Mm. There's a lot of energy in your dance. You must really work out your dancers, first of all. They have to really put out.
Well, you know what happens is, I mean, yes, of course, dancers are athletes.
Especially your dance.
Yes, they are athletes. And so they do have to be in shape, they have to be in condition, they have to be able to stand up to the demands of the work. But what happens is, if you coach the dancer into being the artist that they really can be, what happens is that they're putting out more energy than you might think they're able to, but not because it's forced, because that's really what they're tapping into. There's a well there inside people that dancers as artists tap into and push forward.
You know what I want to do, although I think you brought some footage, I want to talk about that video at your site because it's accessible to our viewers.
Sure.
I want to talk about that opening piece.
Okay.
Because there is, I think there's a political statement there. There's something going on there besides the beauty and the blending of dance.
Right. And you want me to mention that now? That piece is the piece I believe you're referring to is Word of Mouth. And when I did that piece had to do with African American oral and oral traditions, and trying to highlight, respect, and deal with those things in a way that wasn't off-putting, and try to pay homage to the lineage of those things, so that we don't think that it's all wrapped up in one kind of thing. We don't think that today's rap or hip-hop or spoken word came out of some kind of strange vacuum, that we know that that the poetry of the 60s and 70s had a precursor in the bebop of the 50s, which had a precursor in the jazz vocalizations of the 40s and the 20s at Cab Calloway, and that all those things are connected. So that particular piece was dealing with that lineage, but it's not exactly in a straight line in that same way.
And you do, if I'm not mistaken, within the short clip that's at your site, there are elements of all those phases you just, or some elements
Absolutely.
Of those phases.
Yes, it's important to try to illustrate that.
The other thing that's interesting is that with my limited background, your dance seems to flow nicely. In other words, when you blend these different elements, whether it's some hip-hop or some kickboxing or modern, classical modern dance. In some other pieces I've seen and I've watched, it's very jagged. There's a piece there and there's a piece there, and then maybe that's what they wanted, but yours flows so naturally. How does that happen when you author these pieces?
Well, when you create work, you want people to be able to, for lack of a better term, approach the work, be able to have
it's accessible,
right? To have a way into the work. You don't want to be off-putting. You want people to come and feel like what I'm watching is something that I could do almost. mean, these people know a little more, but you want people to be able to feel that thing in their body. And when you see it and it runs together in a way that says, oh, that's a human being, as opposed to that's only an icon, it's only an idea, it's only something intellectual, it's only something I have to think about. It has to be visceral. It has to be something that you can grab a hold of and that can grab them.
And that's what you do.
That's what I try to do, yeah.
Other modern dancers, even the most famous, will, don't you think they sometimes subsume the dancers to some statement they're trying to make, and they're almost like pieces on a chessboard?
Yes, I think that can happen, and ideally what happens in any art form and by any artist is that you get past the place of attempting to express something and you get to the place where you can really express something, and when you're really expressing something, then those things don't happen.
I mean, you're in such an ideal position for so many young artists in San Francisco, especially dancers. You can create, you can dance, you can produce, and now you're teaching at the same time. I mean, it's a wonderful.
It's a good life,
and you probably know that.
Yeah,
because you struggled probably like all artists have.
Sure. I mean, you have to create your niche. I mean, there's a certain environment that you go into as an artist, and you have to create your niche like any other creature.
Do you feel like when you look at your career, because now you're settled, you're acclaimed, people know who you are.
Whoa, I don't think I'm settled. Please, God.
No. What I meant, you know how
don't throw dirt on me.
No. I don't want to be responsible for that. No. Well, I think you are, and I think most of the critics do, and your community, the dance community, does. But what I meant is, like in Los Angeles and Hollywood, when you're a director, there comes a point where you're so established you can do what you want. The finances are there. Do you feel? How far away are you? Do you think from peaking, or do you feel
it doesn't work? I don't think it works quite like that. First of all, the finances are never there because it's art in America. So they're not there. It's always an uphill battle to make sure that you can continue to make your art. You're peaking. I think you peak every time you make something that you're happy with. And so I think someone has said, and I don't remember who, that you're only as good as that last thing that you did.
That's very
Hollywood.
It.
Yeah, but that's it because you have it is a world where you produce. It's almost like sort of being an academia where you publish or perish. You have to create, and you have to continue.
But can you
to create.
be busted for a bad program? In other words, it's sort of the judgment call of whether it's a bad program or not. That's a whole other thing. The critics aren't really part of that mix. Do you care about the critics?
They don't determine whether it's a poor program or not. I do. They get to review, but I determine whether or not the work was successful. I mean, that's something I think that most artists come to understand, that initially. The opinion, particularly most of us don't really know the critics very well, except that we know their point of view very well because we see what they write every week.
Like
or
in
every
Dance
other
Magazine.
Day. Right. And we get
Does that have some control over what people think?
Well, I'll put it this way. You brought up Hollywood. There are actors who have said that after they've won the Oscar, that they didn't get any more work. And then there are actors who've won the Oscar and then continue to work. I don't know that it necessarily acts on it. I think if you work with integrity, you continue to work, and you know the A's and B's and C's, and you put your head to the grindstone, you fit to the grindstone, your back to the grindstone, and you do your thing every day. Then if you're lucky, you continue to work.
I want the viewers to know this week they can actually watch you at the Jewish Community Center.
Yes.
All week till Sunday.
Yes.
But I want to ask you, where do you think you might be going next? You have some ideas that you can preview with us? Is there something that you want to do? I
love working on the human condition. I love working with the idea of human potential, that we're all capable of more than we're doing now, and we're all really capable of making a huge fall. And the sort of distance between those things, the distance between becoming more than you thought or others may have thought you could be, and the idea of falling short of those. Those are amazing, tremendous things that I think.
All right. So in other words, we're sort of want to do a little genesis of an idea. So this becomes a challenge for you. What happens to that need to express that? What's the next step as you move towards a dance piece that might capture that?
Well, it depends on where that larger notion falls. So recently I did a piece called The President's Daughter over the last few years ago, and it had to do with Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings and other political men in American history who've had the kind of relationship, really hard word to use in that particular instance, but the kind of relationship that he had with Sally Hemings, and the fact that he is, if you try to really strip away all the other stuff, a huge figure that should be admired. But if you're an African American, you think, wow, he had a relationship, for lack of a better term, with this very young girl and produced children. And they've been denied by his family almost up until present day. And wow, how do I deal with that? So first thing I do is I go back and I start to read. Then I have discussions with some of the dancers possibly about the issues of gender and race and class that are sort of wrapped up in that, and then the ideas of sort of being an American and having this huge icon like Thomas Jefferson, who did so many tremendous things, and then had these things that don't quite match up with that. And then what you do is you try to find the moments that bring that to the front, that are sort of iconic. Did that make any sense?
Well, no, I want you to take me to the next step when it becomes human form.
Well, it becomes human form because you have people, and what you do is the people become representatives of the idea.
Do you go and collaborate on stage?
At times. At times.
Do you come in with a storyline, or do you come in with a theme so the dancers can participate in it, or how far along are you before you
all of that? I sometimes come in to collaborate. I mean, with that particular piece, I had them read a novel from 1856, Clotel, or The President's Daughter, which was the name of that novel. And then we had a lot of discussion around it. Sometimes I come in around another idea, and I may be a dictator. Sometimes I come in and I say, this, this, and this. Other times, if I have collaborators, recently I did something with some youth poets, and we sat around the table for months before we began to make steps, and we talked about issues.
Do you start with the music first?
Sometimes. Here's the thing that's really great. It's never the same. It's never the same. If the music is there and I'm inspired purely by the music, then that will take me. But if something else pushes it, if it's a social issue,
like this one,
like that one, then I move forward that way.
And then the music comes later.
And the music may come later. I look for it as I'm going through.
We only have a couple minutes left, and there's something that's been fascinating, or I've been struggling with. I understand sheet music, and I understand musicians. They can capture, a composer can capture that emotion like you were talking about, and put it down on paper so it's there for the rest of time. How do you capture this motion on stage with human beings at work? How do you capture that so that it's duplicated and they can say, I'm going to see that particular piece?
Well, there is a vocabulary.
1 minute.
There's a vocabulary that makes it easier for dancers to retain at least general information, and then you shape the nuance. The dancers understand, you understand left, right, up, down, and then you shrink that into this set of steps, and then you begin to build.
Do you write these out?
Absolutely not.
You never write them out?
No.
Do the dancers ever improvise a little bit on stage?
Absolutely. I have to give them that room, because when I put them on stage, then that is their territory.
So what percent of a classic piece you've done turns out to be improvised, and how much is it what you originally?
It's 200%. It's you do exactly what I want by 100%, and then you fill that vessel.
I see. Okay, and there's the mystery of dance. Robert Moses, thank you for being with us.
Good
luck this week.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Visit our website at www.sfunscripted.com.